everybody! I'm Clarity, and this time I'm talking about Whispered Words, an anime adaptation of the first couple volumes in a 9-volume manga that I had to torture myself into reading to understand the whole plot of this series! So, Whispered Words is an anime following a character named Sumika, who is gay for her best friend, Ushio. However, while Ushio is openly gay, she claims to be only interested in small, cute girls, neither of those traits matching Sumika. On their way to the show's inevitably incomplete ending, they meet Tomoe and Miyako, two shameless lesbians who have a dream of making a club full of lesbians. There are other characters as well, such as Kieri, the kind of character writers make to ensure that not everyone is a lesbian, Azusa, a lesbian, and Masaki, an embarrassed crossdresser. And that's about it, really. Alright, anyway, let's start with the positives. In terms of the romance and how well it's touched upon, this is actually done decently well. Right at the start of episode 1, the feelings of both protagonists are clear, with Ushio even lamenting the fact that girls can't just love other girls. Her relationship to Sumika in the anime isn't toxic or problematic aside from very few choice moments. It's just unfortunate due to Ushio being interested in other types of girls. The drama over this, while being a little overdone, does genuinely leave me feeling bad for Sumika. Episode 1 specifically is honestly amazing. Regardless of if I give this a bad review or not, I can recommend episode 1 at least. Because very little else is set up for future episodes in it, it's almost like a one-shot with a bittersweet ending. Some of the more touching scenes in the show do legitimately make me feel something, which I can give it some credit for. Also, despite any complaints I may have about her later, I like how Sumika has brains and bronze wrapped into one, but that actually works to her disadvantage due to Ushio's personal tastes. It was fun seeing a smart, strong, and boyish character. Ushio can be fun as well. Even if she's a bit over the top and can't read Sumika during the softer moments, it's refreshing to have a character be so openly gay. Aside from that, there's... Yeah, I think that's it actually. Moving on. So, while Whispered Words has a good foundation, it's the things layered on top where we start to have problems. The first thing I should touch on is probably the whole cross-dressing thing I mentioned earlier, because this guy gets his own dang episode that could have gone to something more meaningful than his sister's weird obsession with him. He's just used for jokes about how feminine he is, or how Ushio is interested in him and Sumika is upset because she's losing to a boy dressed as a girl. And what I don't get is why he's there at all plot-wise. Not only does he do so little for it, but, I mean, there's a demographic for gay, and a demographic for characters who cross-dress. I'm not sure it's a smart decision to try and aim for both at the same time. The second things are Tomoe and Miyako, the lesbians I mentioned earlier. They, disappointingly, have their plot centered entirely around romance. Whether it's trying to help Sumika win over Ushio, rarely and annoyingly, trying to get their lesbian club approved, or just being gay together, this is all they do. It really does feel like they're only there for the fan service aspect. Well, that and to mock Sumika for her unrequited love. Just in general, these characters are extremely obnoxious towards Sumika, being those kinds of characters who force themselves on others just to either satisfy their own desires or get a rise out of someone. The worst Tomoe does is steal someone's first kiss and just have no reaction to basically anything, but Lollipop over here is irritating because she makes snide comments that almost makes it seem like the show is trying to mock Sumika for how in love she is with Ushio. Oh yeah, because you two are so normal! Or the fact that Ushio doesn't like her back. It seems really cruel to do when Sumika clearly can't help how she feels. And they're just those characters who invade Sumika's thoughts and personal space, not leaving when she tells them to get out of her house. Miyako tried to draw over a specific picture that is precious to Sumika, while Tomoe started eating Sumika's snacks, and then both Miyako and Tomoe act oblivious as to why Sumika wouldn't want them in her house afterwards. I guess we'll never know. The third thing is that, while it's refreshing to see two protagonists who are explicitly gay, the plot, much like the dang opening, is incredibly slow-paced and doesn't really say much. If one is expecting some deep look into the psyche of the characters, that's not what this is. The manga goes a bit deeper in that department, but while I appreciate some of it, it almost starts feeling as if Sumika was a better person, though maybe not as happy, before Ushio came into her life. The reason why I get that feeling is simple. Most of Sumika's worst traits are related back to Ushio. When Sumika is distracted by Ushio, she gets all blushy and starts ignoring her duties and also the people around her. When she's doing something for Ushio or being upset at Ushio liking another girl, she tends to act irrationally or pull other people into it, however willing or reluctant they are. There are even a few times where she has, certain fantasies about Ushio, which just plays into making gay romance unnecessarily sexual when it's not any different from straight romances. And this is even ignoring the fact that the first third-ish of the anime hardly includes any sexual fantasies at all from Sumika, meaning that this was a trait given to her out of nowhere for the sake of fan service. It was a lot funnier when she got flustered over small things, and they should have just kept that. Even more insulting is the scene that seemed to be touching before Sumika slipped onto Ushio's chest. 3 guesses as to what gender the author is, and none of them count because of course they're male. Point being, while I'm sure she was made to be nerfed by her crush on Ushio, it doesn't seem to make her a better person. The fourth thing to note is that, like multiple other romantic comedies, this has those typical anime moments of the ruined confession, the fake confession, and the misunderstanding. All are equally horrible because I was honestly getting into some of those moments before they were effectively ruined by the fact that comedies hesitate to develop anything in fear of ruining their joke material. I mean, regardless of whatever negative things I said about Sumika, it does legitimately hurt to see her go through so much effort to appear cute to Ushio and even be given high praise by Ushio, only to be swiftly stricken down as Ushio reminds her, out of nowhere really, that Sumika isn't her type. And the misunderstanding scene is just confusing. See, the episode is about Ushio trying to find a way to practice her first kiss, because she wants it to be special. But after Sumika tries to tell her that she thinks it would be special regardless, Ushio takes it as a sign that Sumika is in love with someone and thus needs a kissing lesson despite what Sumika had just said to her? That's not being oblivious. That's just the writing wanted to tear down Sumika, who is already lamenting the fact that Ushio would never love her until Ushio starts to speak in a way that implies she might. The only thing missing is a sad trombone, but I don't think enough sad trombones exist in the world for this poor girl. And it's so dramatic. Some of the characters freak out at the tiniest things or dwell on things for way too long. Maybe it's just the slow music making things seem slower than they are, but ugh. The manga even doubles down on this as the chapters go on, and it drags to the point of just not being interesting anymore. With the fact that most of the characters get thrown in with their own little conflicts, it starts to feel less like they're actual characters and more like they're setups for the protagonists to get thrown into some sort of activity. Instead of using the environment or hobbies of the characters to create conflict, they bring in more characters who have a set goal that either interferes or somehow furthers the relationships of the characters. Once the show quickly realizes that they can't just get rid of the character once it's said and done, it's too late, and they're effectively stuck with this character who is only meant to serve a task that could have been handled by an outer force, like an errand or something pushed upon the protagonists by family members or an event. Like, there's a plot with Azusa where Ushio seems to miss Sumika, which I guess furthers their relationship. But that's done much better in the last episode anyway, where Sumika is gone for much longer and Ushio is left worried. Heck, that plot was already done with Masaki too! Often, I find myself forgetting characters' names or even what they were really supposed to do, because I was too focused on how much they irritated me or how weird their placement was in the story. Also, by the time you're used to Sumika's antics and the consistent nature of the touching moments turned rotten, it stops being shocking and delves into predictability. For example, there's an episode where everyone goes to a swimming pool, because of course they do, and Sumika gets upset at a comment Tomoe makes. This leads to a competition where Sumika so obviously loses because Tomoe is just that kind of character and the setup is too blatant. This is also an episode where Sumika is even more obsessed with Ushio than usual, so her freakouts get dull really quickly, not helped by the fact that this is one of the last episodes and the gag has worn out a long time ago. Now, I should say that, while one might think I'd want to go on about the ending as my last point, as I even said it was incomplete before, that's not really something I want to address. Because, admittedly, even though it being incomplete means not getting a kiss by the end, I'm kind of glad the anime ended. See, the manga, unfortunately, and like I hinted at earlier, falls into the typical romance trope of dragging things on for a long, long time. Drama, drama, and more drama, with Ushio even eventually learning about Sumika's crush after she'd fallen in love with her, but choosing not to do anything about it, at most just messing with Sumika about it. Character upon character come into play, with one of them having a repeat of a plot that Azusa had, falling in love with Sumika but soon realizing that Sumika and Ushio have something special. Plots and characters start to become centered entirely around romance, with Sumika in particular becoming practically useless due to whatever thing that happened with Ushio that day. It's kind of a mess. There was only one character out of the added ones that I was really fond of, but it's not worth wanting the anime to have potentially gone on for another 45-ish episodes just for that. As for the anime itself, I mean, it looks pretty nice. I can't deny how pretty it is sometimes. It's just strange. If I were to cut it down and give it a proper ending, I'd just make it movie length and try to salvage it that way. If I could come up with my own scenes, I'd keep the first episode basically how it was, but have the rest of the movie be the fallout of that. Especially since the plot of Ushio's crush gets resolved far too simply and quickly in both the anime and the manga. Sumika and Ushio are very cute together when they're not at the expense of a joke, so I'd just turn Sumika's fantasies way down and focus more on the difference between being in love and just being attracted to someone. Like I said, the foundation is there, but what's layered on top ruins it. Oh. Huh. I made it through this entire review without actually whispering words. Bye so long, see ya!